I'm Peter Fergie, the front of house engineer for Sam Fender. We're in the Liverpool M&S Bank Arena, setting up for pre-production for our upcoming arena tour. So I'm using the S5000. I enjoy the layout, I enjoy the way it works. I'm used to using them. I've used them on a few different bands now, various sizes throughout the range, down to the very compact 1500. This is a good fit for front of house. I can lay out pretty much everything I need right in front of me. And yeah, it sounds great. Knowing that everything I need is kind of built in, there's plenty of processing power, and the updates that roll through are great. Some of the recent ones in the version 1.9 have been kind of really helpful to lift the sound of the gig to the next level. The 7000 gives me more faders, but I do find that at festivals sometimes you've just got to try and squeeze in where you can. So the 5000's are sort of a perfect balance between getting everything laid out in front of you and just fitting into whatever hole you're provided with. No outboard. I've got a rack next to me with a UPS and what's normally a set of drawers, and that's it. For starters, on every channel I've got everything I need to process that channel itself. So everything from obviously gate compression, EQ, the normal things you find, but you've also got dynamic EQ or multiband for every single channel, along with certain sort of luxury items that you'd normally spend a lot of money to put in a rack. The primary source enhancer by Neve, which has been modelled really well in here. So you've now actually got 128 of them, which is a lot of money in a rack and a lot of space. So that's all on there, 16 effects units, and I am sort of using all of them. I'm very, very close to using all of them. We have various guests and different musicians that come in and out sometimes. Sometimes there's a horn section, sometimes there's a backing guest vocalist. So it's nice to have the extra effects just to dial in when needed. I'm using all sorts across the board, really. Everything from the compressor models, all onboard effects, and the preamp models are great as well. I find the preamp models very handy for things like acoustic guitars. We've got a mandolin as well, which can sound a bit spiky straight down the pickups. Adding that preamp modeling to it is it's a nice way to soften it and warm it up a little bit without having to do it with EQ and compression, which I can then also apply to the chain to really get the sound where I want it. This one's Sam acoustic guitar, which is a new channel for our patch. So I am just sort of dialing in from scratch on that one, but sort of taking some settings from the other acoustics just as a starting point. I'm using it essentially to warm up that sound of the DI. Sometimes just direct from the pickup on an acoustic can be a bit spiky, a bit scratchy. So it's taking the edge off quite nicely. The reason that looks slightly different there is we're actually on virtual soundcheck at the moment, so there's no preamp data up here. I'm also using the dual threshold source expander on a lot of channels. It's very helpful on the vocal to clean up the microphone, allow me to push it, particularly on some of the backing vocals where Sam's very strong on the mic. The backing vocals are often a little bit quieter, just to try and cut out some of that drum spill. But I'm using them across the board. Saxophone, for example. I've got a song where the sax player, Johnny, wants distortion on his saxophone. So I'm punching in distortion on that, but that's quite wild if you're not careful. So it says gate up here, but actually the expander, I'm using them quite gently. I don't like to make anything too drastic with it. I'm using quite a few of the different compressor models. They sound great. I mean, I'm very much just putting them on there and turning them until they sound good at the moment. So in the effects rack, everything on board, I've got loads of reverbs going on. They sound great. I don't see any need for external effects units for that. Along with the reverbs, I'm using a little bit of echo, a tap delay, things to song by song basis. I've got those effects built into scenes, song by song. The scenes are really just doing effects recalls and some of the electronics, some of the synthesizers, the patches at different volumes or different sounds, and maybe doing a slightly different EQ or different level. So just to get those basics done, and then everything else is just me, hands on the console. One thing I am looking at adding, which I haven't tried yet, is this the Subharmonic Synthesizer. Giving it a go, see what happens. There's a couple of sections in the set where I want to see if we can really push the low end beyond where it is already. So it's something to play with. It's nice to have the option of a toy like that to play with. The great benefit is that all those effects are straight in there out the box. There's no extra licensing required. So it's just load up the effects rack, recall the plugin you want, the effect you want, and you know, the extra compressors and the preamp models. It all just comes as standard with the desk, which is nice to have as an option. So we've built on the previous tour. We were running a DM64 rack on the stage end and the S5000. Because of the increased input count, both myself and Terry on monitors have gone to the DM64 plus a 168 expansion, adding another 16 in and 8 out. That covers everything we need on that end. On this end, in the back of this desk, it's just the two cards, one of them being Dante, one of them being Waves. The Dante virtual sound card maxing out at 64 inputs for recording. So unfortunately, we've managed to somehow get above that, even though it's only a 6-piece band normally. So I've got the Waves card, which can do up to, I think, 128 channels.
I'm Terry Smith, monitor engineer for Sam Fender. We're up on channel count now. Like I'm at 88 inputs. And so I was thinking about a larger console. What I really like about this one is everything is right where I need it. I find on the slightly larger consoles, I'm stepping over here, using a screen over here. I kind of like it to all be in front of me. And then I take up no space at festivals and stuff. It's great, yeah. The console sounds great. All the built-in effects and everything sound great. All the dynamics sound really nice. So that's the best thing for me about it, yeah. I came to the conclusion that if I was going to use any other console, I'd have to have some outboard with it. I'd have to have either some hardware outboard or some Waves or something with it. And I really like it all being in the same place. There's less to go wrong, there's less to mess around with. If I can make it all work in the box, you know, fly shows, I've got a USB stick and it's exactly the same. I'm not messing about with anything else. That for me is a big enough reason to go with it over anything else. If I felt like I couldn't achieve what I wanted with it, I'd definitely go for the more complicated setup. But I was like, I can achieve what I want and it's all in the same place. I don't have any extra stuff. That's a really nice place to be, I think. I actually used to own a GLD a good few years ago. I used to tour with that with a few bands and on monitors. And the actual system's really similar to that. So for me, it was really easy to jump back onto, yeah. One thing I do love actually is the talk back assignments they have. So normally on other desks, say I'd have buttons set up to talk to once the gig starts, I want to be able to talk to individual band members if there's any issue without talking to anyone else. And on other consoles, you can set up talk buttons, but then it won't auto cancel. So you could talk to the singer and then 10 minutes later want to talk to the drummer and still be talking to the singer. Whereas with these talks, they've got set up, you can have them non-latching, and I've got them all permanently set up to these soft keys. So I can talk to Dean, talk to Sam, and it shows you on screen as well who you're talking to. I can talk to Tom, talk to the whole band. And the second I let go, that's never going to them. So I run that the whole time. So I'm usually talking to the techs all at the same time. If I want to talk to the band altogether or individual people, I can run off this and it automatically just unlatches itself. So there's no danger of talking to the wrong person, which is really nice. And every time I think of something to try, it can do it, and it's got something that will do what I'm wanting it to. The 1.9 was a massive upgrade for me. And the dual threshold expander that they added in 1.9, Sam has a lot of vocal in his ears and some loud wedges as well. And the addition of that, especially on smaller stages, if we do outdoor shows or smaller promo shows, just being able to filter out all the drum kit. We did a TV show last weekend and it was on a really small stage. He's right up against the drum kit. And being able to really nicely filter out the drum kit using that has been a lifesaver, an absolute lifesaver. And it's probably enough that I wouldn't be able to switch to another console without something like that now. It's really great. And that was the 1.9 update. So at least they're adding really useful stuff. And they added, in terms of monitor engineers as well, I've got different layouts on my soft keys as well so I can get to my mixes. So they added this, and I've got some EQ on there just for pilot tone thing I was having. But so you got these 12 band EQs now on all the outputs, which is really nice, which is another addition on 1.9. So they keep adding good stuff, which is great. I feel like it's capable of doing everything I want it to do. I just had to get my head round how it likes to do it, if you know what I mean. And I think it's the same with anything. You just have to use it and get used to it and learn it, especially when you're doing more involved stuff. So everything is pretty heavily scene-based. So all my utility, I've got lots of scenes to do utility things like switching layouts, switching soft keys, virtual sound checks stuff that I do. you know, doing things with guest vocalists, turning on and off certain channels in certain people's mixes so people can test things and not disturb other people. Like I've got that all mapped out to scenes and onto soft keys. So yeah, really flexible. I mean, we've been told about guest vocalists, you know, 5 minutes before we start a set. So it gives me the power to do some stuff, get their mix set up for them side of stage while the band are playing, get them happy, and then they can walk on and do the song with them. I think that's the thing with like these guys, and Sam, he just likes doing new stuff, likes playing new instruments, and yeah, it's nice to facilitate that rather than say, no, you can't have any more instruments. So we just keep extending the channel list and, and keep adding stuff. Yeah.
We can almost always just say yes when they come up with an idea and we go, yep, we can make that happen. And that's the aim really, is to not stand in the way of their creative goals as a band, and for Sam himself to be able to sort of reproduce the music that he's creating in the studio as well as possible live, with the audience expectation of the quality of sound of a concert. You have to keep matching or exceeding that expectation. So, you know, we've got the consoles that we want and the PA that we want to make that happen. This rehearsal, obviously building up for this tour, I'm also using it as the kind of foundation for the rest of this cycle. So we're on Sam's second album now. Officially, I think this is the first tour of the new album. So with lots of changes in the backline and some new songs to add, I'm using these rehearsals to build upon for potentially for summer and further beyond, anything abroad. Hopefully, taking the dLive everywhere we go. I think for starters, it's important for them to trust you. You need that kind of them to have confidence that you know what you're doing out there, so that they can perform on stage. And the same with, they need to know that their monitors are sounding great on stage, because otherwise you lose the performance if there's any uncertainty for the band members. I've been with Sam a few years. I started out on monitors. I've now moved to front of house. Obviously, that's quite a change, but it's great to add some creativity on my end out front. Performances coming from the band and from Sam are really strong every night. It's a pleasure to mix.